Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for listening to Mr. Laxton's video on this 6.5b Algebra 2 notes. So today we're talking about finding solutions to polynomials. So we're going to be given some things today, and then we have to really just find the rest. So we really just have two examples on here. So today is how do I find zeros of a polynomial given 1, 0. All right. So today they're going to give us 1, 0. They're going to tell us that, hey, this is 0, and then you and your job is to find the rest. So the remainder theorem, we talked about this a little bit in 6.5a, is the remainder theorem is just this. If you divide a polynomial by that x minus k, the remainder, r, is f of k. So it's really, this is that direct substitution, the synthetic substitution. Synthetic sub is that when you sub something in, the remainder is actually what shoots out when you plug it in as well. All right, so this leads us to this. If we get a 0 at the end, so if we get a remainder of 0, then this x minus k is a factor of the polynomial. So what we really have to do first is we really have to factor this whole polynomial first. So this factor theorem says that, hey, if this is a factor, if and only if you get a remainder of 0 at the end. Okay, so today they're going to give us a 0. They are going to tell us that, hey, this is 0, and then you're going to have to factor that whole trinomial, or excuse me, not just trinomials, polynomials, completely to find eventually all the zeros. All right, so for this first one here, we're looking at this. It says this 3x cubed, all that guy, and it tells you that x minus 4, it tells you that k equals -4. So you know that f of k equals 0. So the remainder of this guy is 0. And it talks about in here all these words in this star here. It tells you that this means that x minus a -4 is a factor. So minus a negative is obviously x plus 4. So we know that this can be factored out of there. So essentially we're taking this and we're going to divide x plus 4 out of this, and then we're going to see what we have left. So let's divide this out of here. So I'm going to take my k as -4, and then let's do that synthetic division and see what shoots out. So now we have 3, we have 13, we have 2, and we have -8. Okay, so if I go through this synthetic division, it's going to leave me with that polynomial that's left. So I bring this 3 straight down, so I have 3, I multiply here, I get -12, I add straight down, I get 1, then I get -4, -2, +8, and then 0. So notice here that I get 0 for a remainder, and that's good, and that's exactly what it told me up here, that f of k equals 0. So that's my remainder. My -2 is my constant, then I go my x, and then I go my x squared. So if I divide x plus 4, into this polynomial, I'm left with 3x squared plus 1x minus 2. And really what this guy means is that we have x plus 4. It's always the opposite. Remember, it's the opposite of what it looks here. Is the binomial that I factored out of there already. So now, in the end here, it tells us to factor this polynomial. So I need to factor what I have left. And the nice thing is here is that now we know how to factor this. We can factor this trinomial with the diamond method. Diamond factor. All right, so if I go through here, I can multiply, and I remember if my a is greater than 1, I got to multiply. So now I'm going to have x squared plus 1x minus 6. And then I know in my diamond, I'm going to have -6, +1, so that's going to be 3, -2. So I have x plus 3, and I have x minus 2. Don't forget here to divide by that original a value. So now I have x plus 1. And then I have 3x minus 2 But I also, and don't forget about this, guys, you also have this x plus 4 that's tacked on at the front. So I got to bring that guy on here as well. So I have x plus 4. So I factored this, and that turned into these two. So now my complete answer here, my factored form, is these three guys together. That's exactly what my answer is. All right, so they give us one of the factors, and then you have to factor it using that to find the other factors. All right, so now in this next one, it gives us one of the zeros, and then you need to find the rest of the zeros. So what we have to do here is we have to factor, then set factors equal to 0. All right, so we're going to factor it the same way. It gives us that my 0 is 7. So I'm going to look at that. I'm going to plug in 7, and I'm going to do synthetic division. So I plug in my synthetic division. I go with my 2, my -9, my -32, and my -21. Okay, remember, as I'm going from my x cubed to x squared to x to constant. There's no missing terms, so I don't have any zeros. This guy comes down. I go 2. Multiply here to give me 14, add straight down to give me 5, multiply to give me 35, add straight down to give me 3, and you should get 21 here to give me 0 at the end. So you know that if it's a 0, you should get 0 in the end. Okay, so now that's my remainder. This is my constant, this is my x, and this is my x squared. Okay, and remember here that one of my factors for my 7 is going to be x minus 7, and then I have 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. Okay, so again here I can go through and I can factor this. So I factor that by multiplying my 2 times my 3, so I got x squared plus 5x plus 6, put that guy in the diamond, 6 and 5, two things that multiply to 6 and add to 5 are 3 and 2. So now I get x plus 3 and x plus 2. I got to make sure that I divide that by 2, divide it by 2. So now I have 2x plus 3, because that guy doesn't simplify, that goes out in front. And then I have x plus 1. All right. Don't forget here is that this, I'm going to keep the same color. Don't forget that this x minus 7 is also in front of there as well. So now I have an x minus 7. Okay, so this right here, this whole thing right here is my factored form. Okay, but it asked me not to find my factored form, it asked me for the zeros. So I set each one of these equal to 0 here. So now I go 2x plus 3 is equal to 0, I go x plus 1 is equal to 0, and I go x minus 7 is equal to 0. So if I solve all these guys down, I subtract the 3, divide by 2, I get x equals -3 halves. Then I get x equals -1, and I get x equals +7 for that last one. All right, so they're giving you this time, they're giving you a 0. You have to do the synthetic division with the 7, find out what's left, and then you can factor that using the diamond form. All right, so that diamond form is a good thing to know. It still comes back from the first semester. All right, so thank you for listening to Mr. Laxton's video on the 6.5B notes. Please come find me if you have any questions.